And who is this man clothed in glory? Who is this man who came to save me? Oh, who is this man, strong and mighty? And who is this man, victorious one? And who is this man, clothed in glory? Who is this man who came to save me? Oh, his name is Jesus. It's the greatest name, the greatest name. He is our soon and coming King. Oh, we wait for you. We will wait for you. Soon and coming King. God of the turnaround, I am God of the turnaround. I'm gonna push back and overthrow and overtake everything that's hindered you. I am God of the turnaround. I am God of the turnaround. I'm gonna push back and overthrow and overtake everything that's hindered you. I am God of the turnaround. I am God of the turnaround. I'm gonna push back and overthrow and overtake everything that's hindered you. I am God of the turnaround. I'm God of the turnaround. Just watch me move everything that's hindered you. Oh, just watch me move. Oh, watch me move everything that's hindered you. Oh, I am your breakthrough. I am your breakthrough. Just turn around and watch me come through for you. 'Cause I am your breakthrough. Yes, I am your breakthrough. It's my joy to come and break through for you. Just watch and see. Oh, can't you feel it? I'm coming to your side, and I'm breaking through for you. Everything that's hindered you, everything that stood against you, I'm coming to your side, and I'm gonna break through. 'Cause I am your breakthrough. I am your breakthrough. Everything you need is found in me. Nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing broken. Everything you need is found in me. Can't you see?
Did you all sleep? Huh? Everything good? So this is the first spirit school we've had here. We've had these one-nighters, but the first spirit school, it's not going to be easy for you all. So I have my game face on, but just so you know, the first spirit school in a city is rough because the devils are freaking out. So they'll get used to it and move out. Hopefully they return everything they've stolen from you on their way out. But that's the way it's going to be. Here in Kansas City, there's a new sheriff in town, and your authority through Jesus Christ is going to be evident. You're going to rule and reign, and you're going to own your territory. You just needed permission, and so that's what Warrior Nuts does. And you all are going to be fine. And we're going to all receive from the Lord. We're going to end the race right. Okay. Do it. Okay. This morning is going to be off the charts. This is like years and years of study. A lot of the documentation that I have now is not the stuff I had back then. I had documentation that I had to destroy. And so I had 30 years, 110 different books, and a whole bunch of interviews with different people, and people started getting in trouble. I started being watched and followed, so I destroyed everything, but it's still up here. So if I go, seem like I go off script, it's just so that I can go from memory. But if you want the documentation for this, then you'll have to go to the deep state to get it. And if the devil that tells you you can't have something, you know you're going to get it, right? You know that. You do. If he says you're not going to get this, just write it down. Okay, so you understand that that's kind of the way that the devil deals with people that resist him. He tells them, he tries to convince them that they're not going to receive something. And so we've received all things through Christ. It's not just a statement. It really literally happened. And the other world, just so you know, to preface all this, the other worlds are more real than this one. This one's fake to me. Even the colors and everything are different, and it's just ugly in comparison. Now God's creation in its inception was beautiful, and it still is now, as long as man doesn't touch it, fly over it and leave trails in the sky and stuff like that, But you look at God's creation and he speaks, right? Okay, but you have to understand it's a fallen world too. And a lot of the physical properties of the earth are not the same now as they were, right? Okay, so you can take data, and I just preface this because I don't want to lose people, because you understand that I can go really deep, and I could lose a lot of people, and I don't want to do that. And I don't like being lost in conversations, but just so you know, I could get really deep into equations, mathematical equations and things like that, and quote a whole bunch of people that are way smarter than me, but I don't want to just do something to impress you with my knowledge. I want you to be able to walk with me through this, or it really isn't a benefit to you. So these things are not fiction. What I'm telling you, I'll tell you if it's conjecture, if it's something like where I'm saying, okay, this is what based on this is probably where it's going. This is probably what's happening. I will say that. If not, if I'm just telling you, it's because I got documents. Because I got a lot of documents that are redacted, but you can figure it out. I mean, your 5-year-old can, fill in the blank. So when you have mistaken documents that shouldn't have gotten out, some of these are mistaken documents. They disappear for some of them 20 years, and then they came back, and I grabbed them again. Just people put them on their hard drives and sit in their bunker for 20 years, and then they put it back out again. Then the government takes it down. Is this too much for somebody? Because it's not even getting hot yet. Okay, so this is not, over 40 years of study and interviewing people, and these are people that would know. All the documents that I've destroyed, the books that I've destroyed, because they started. When I say they, I'm talking about those entities started to feel like they could come into our property and stuff because we had this material. And so we just got rid of it all. So if I feel that I have to back off, I'm going to back off. If I get too intellectual about things or too intense for you all. I mean, you're from Kansas City. I don't know where you are, all of you are spiritually. I know the students, I know where they're at. But here's the thing is that, don't think about this. I have these displays up here. We don't believe in flying saucers or anything like that, right? So people say that. They say, well, we don't believe in all that stuff. But yet, how do you explain how I just put a light bulb on this platform and it's levitating and it's lighting up? So, Nikola Tesla developed all this. But they killed him, and they took all his books, And I was able to get a hold of some of the missing stuff. There was one student, there was an intern, and I got the books, but I gave it to a special forces guy, and he got thrown in jail. So he still has those. Hey, if you're watching, please, can I have my books back? Okay, so this is being transferred wirelessly. The light, this is levitating. So, if I spin this way, that's the way the earth is spinning, it'll just keep doing that all for the next 4 hours. It won't even slow down. Okay, so there's nothing in this realm affecting that as far as it's acting like it's in a vacuum in space. So if you push something into space, it just keeps going until you have another force that acts on it. So it's just going to keep rotating like that. It's floating. If you were watching me, I set it on there. Now, how can you explain that? If you're eating Captain Crunch on Saturday mornings and watching cartoons, you're never going to go past a certain point with this. Okay? So this is why I have a problem with people talking against Christians that believe in the power of God and the gifts of the Spirit and the resurrection power and believing for healing, believing for prosperity. And yet, that appears to be more supernatural than some of our lives. Okay, no, that's all just science. So I'm not allowed to walk on water, but this light bulb can walk on water. So what did Jesus do when he walked on water? And that everything he did as a son of man, not the son of God, because he couldn't say and hand it over to us and say, you're going to do the same thing, which means including walking on water. Right. The things I've done, you're going to do. Because it's not me, he said, it's my Father that's in me that's doing the works, right? Okay, so how do you understand this? Okay, so then I put a UFO here, doing the same thing. And this is how they work. This isn't hearsay. These are people that I know that worked on them. See, it still spin at the same speed. Now, it slows down if you spin it the other way. So that'd be the counter of the rotation of the earth. Look at you all. Okay. All right. You ready to get into it? Okay, so they really regret this document getting out. So this was top secret. It got out. And this is what we call the Twining document. So you can look this up, download it, send it to everybody, print it out, post it everywhere, and listen to the demons weep. Okay, so this general Twining, it's this is a gold bar. Okay, so this is what it says. You mind if I just read it to you? Hopefully they don't cut us off. Because, the AI, the algorithms, they'll hear me reading this document, and so I might repeat myself. And if you notice I repeat myself a lot, if you watch my videos, you see they cut things out. Those are all live. They cut that out. They have a 6-second delay. And so they can cut it out within the 6 seconds live. So if you notice, keywords are missing. If you notice, I say stuff that I don't say. Like I say I don't believe in the Noah's flood. You ever watch that video where I say that? I didn't say that. They can change stuff. Okay, so general twining, something fell out of the sky in July of 1947, right? And hit in not just Roswell, but it also, there was 2 craft. One hit each other, the other. And you don't know all this stuff, but, I'm doing the work for you. One was crash landed in Socorro, New Mexico. Okay, so there were 2. The goodies were in Socorro. All right, so this general, in September of that year, he puts this out. Now, I'm going to back up after I read this. This is just to get you, get your caffeinate. You get time to caffeinate yourself until you wake up. And then, so this is that delay, that 20-minute delay. And if you had really good coffee, you'd already be, acting like a squirrel right now. Okay, so this is the commanding general, and he says, as you requested, there is presented below to the command concerning the so-called flying discs that they recovered. But they said they didn't recover flying discs, they covered a weather balloon. Doesn't mention a weather balloon in here. And this is in September, so this is months after it happened. So the guy initially, released it, and you saw the newspaper in 1947 that this disc had been recovered. Then they came and retracted it and said it was a weather balloon, and the guy is holding a weather balloon. But I'm going to show you the document. I blew up the document that's in his hand, which is the truth, and I'm going to read that to you because you can blow it up and you can piece together what was the release he got from the command versus the story he was talking about. So does everybody understand what I just said, or do we need to do we need an intermission already? Okay, all right. So this is not something you're going to hear in church. That's why I'm just Captain Kevin. We're having coffee. Because the body of Christ needs to know things and understand things, not just to know them and talk about them, but to also be ready if they weaponize all of this toward the people. So if the narrative, the way it's set up, is you are considered, even if you report it as a pilot, you get called in. And the airline, they threaten you with a psychiatric evaluation. You can only have one in your file. So that's why pilots never, ever repeat reporting. It doesn't go to the FAA. It goes outside to another government agency that nobody knows where it goes, and they're gathering all this information if you encounter these in the air, which I have multiple times, and up to 20 and 30 at a time in groups with witnesses there. But when I'm asked if I want to report it, because they said we show nothing, I go, well, look out your window. Don't look at your radar, because they're invisible to the radar, but they're there. And I don't report them. That's why I'm still here today, talking to you. That's kind of weird, isn't it? It's just like if you look at the photos and you look at things, and I've seen these things, you look at photos of different pictures and angles of our president, he gets a foot taller. He has tattoos, and then he doesn't have tattoos, all these things, okay? These are the kind of things that show where people are at as an observer, is we don't ask questions. And so when something tragic happens in the church, we let it happen, But then when it happens, it's tragic, right? Okay, but the thing is that didn't start last night. That's over years, right? Okay, so it has to do with accountability and whatever happened to what Paul told the Corinthian church, that if you have a word, he said, when you go up to give the word, let everyone in the congregation judge it. Well, that will thin the line down for waiting for who wants to give a word. Because you got to know, right? You got to know that you heard from God if you're going to be giving a word. It's not karaoke night. You're going to be judged by everybody that's spiritual. He's talking about the people that are spiritual in the congregation are going to bear witness with what you're saying or not, or they can give you the thumbs down, So if the risk and the accountability is greater, then people are going to think twice, right? And that's what we really need. That's why we need rules and boundaries, right? Is because sometimes we just don't listen for whatever reason to our heart. So if you really listen to your heart, you're going to say, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, doesn't it amaze you that I went and bought these on Amazon? But yet, most people don't even understand how this works, but yet they don't believe in UFOs either. Well, it doesn't make UFOs go away just because you don't believe in them. Like if there's something going on, then there's something going on. My deal is I want you to know, yes, they exist, but I want you to know what their occupants are, who made them, where they came from. I want you to know all these things, okay, so that if a narrative comes out in order to corral you in a certain direction, you're going to say, no, this is just part of the deception, which it is. Okay, so all of us have a degree of deception, right? If you come here this morning thinking that you're perfect, it won't take very long before we know you're not. But there's going to be an element of deception in all of us. It's called blind spots. Now, I remember this guy, the car that we have, we bought it brand new in 2013. It's a Maxima. It's the best car. I don't need anything for status because I'm in it 2 minutes a week. And nobody sees me. I just go to the headquarters and back, I could walk, Okay, but the selling point of this, and I'm like, we're all going to buy it. But the selling point was, hey, this has no blind spots. The mirrors are set up. And I'm like, this guy is so full of it. Okay, so when I got on the highway, we were driving it home. I looked, didn't see anybody because, there's no blind spots, and so I just went into the next lane. Beep! No, I almost hit somebody. I liked the car so much I didn't take it back and get a refund. But the bottom line is that there's always going to be something that we don't see. That's why we need each other. Okay, so the body of Christ is supposed to be about accountability to each other. Okay, so these memos display that they are not being forthright. And this is just a couple months after they had convinced the public that it was a weather balloon. Okay, but the commander, this General Twining, requested the real information because they had transported these things to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, where they take everything that falls out of the sky, by the way. Everything it's called the Foreign Technology Division, and that's where this went. And we'll get into that in a minute, unless you do give me a thumbs down and we'll talk about Noah's Ark or something, Okay, so concerning the flying disc, he said, this is the preliminary studies for the personnel of T2 and Aircraft Laboratory Engineering Division T3. This opinion was arrived at the conference between personnel from the Air Institute of Technology, Intelligence T2 Office Chief of Engineering Division, and the Aircraft Power Plant and Propeller Laboratories of Engineering Division T3. This is what they report. The phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. It says that right there to the general. All right, under B, it says, there are objects probably approximating the shape of a disk of such appreciable size as to appear to be as large as a man-made aircraft. Okay. All right. Continuing on, messing with your worlds right now a little bit. Let's see what here got here. Make sure I do this right. Oh dear, it's a repeat. I don't have the other one. Darn. Okay. I remember. I memorized it. If you want me just to go through it, I can pull it up on my laptop if you want. But then the Men in Black will show up. But no. Okay, so I'll open that in a minute. But the bottom line is they said it had occupants. These were not human. They appeared to have a iguana, lizard skin hybrid, and they appeared to be Chinese. From Chinese hybrid, they were that DNA of humans plus that. That's not in this document, but that's something else I uncovered from somebody who actually did the autopsies. That on their deathbed, they said, they can't kill me now because I'm on my deathbed. And so they confessed. They took that video down, so you can't find that. But it'll come back up again, and you'll see this guy, this cute little grandpa guy talking. All right, so they said it's the propulsion, they don't understand. It's possibly nuclear, which at the time wasn't even available. Gave it a code name, which they don't use here. And they have a secret, and then it does give a code name. But I'm not going to say that over the air. Okay, so then they have a detailed elements and information packet that is not included in on this. It gives some of the metals and things like that aren't even available to make, even today. They had to do with a mixture that included a purity of magnesium that was in the metal that is up in the 80-90% bracket, which you can't do on this earth. Make it that pure. It was that's where they got the alloys we call aluminum. And they'll people dispute this, but I'm just telling you, we got a lot of the stuff we have today through these retrievals. So I will pull this up in a second because what I want to do is I want to tie this together with what's going on now. Is if you read Paul Hill's book, Unconventional Flying Objects, he was the head of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He developed the boosters for the space shuttle. He has got almost every award. His daughter published his material after he'd passed, and it's called Unconventional Flying Objects. And NASA had handed him all this material, including films, which in the book he goes over everything with you. But he didn't intend for it to be published. But NASA asked him, we don't want you to prove that these exist. We already know they do. We want you to reverse engineer how they work. And so you need to read that book, and that'll save me a lot of time talking about that. So that is a really good book, and that guy is the real thing. The other book that you need to read if you want to save reading 110 books is Unconventional Flying Objects, Paul Hill. Then you want to read The Day After Roswell by Colonel Corso, who was in charge of getting all these things reverse engineered, the parts. And he tells who he distributed it to, and then they reverse engineer it. And then that's how we got fiber optics and Kevlar and a whole bunch of other things like circuit boards and things that were found. So if you read those two books, you'll understand that part of it, which is highly technical. And through these documents here, you can see that they had occupants, and they tell where they went. They even tell the aircraft that they were taken on and from where they went from Fort Worth to, they were taken from Roswell to Fort Worth and then over with they had prop planes at the time, so it was a B-29. But they put all this stuff in there. I saw the interviews before they took him down of the guy that was there when the bodies were brought in. He was there, and talks about the nurse that was there when they did the autopsies. And so you can look up those films if they're still up. And like I said, they're spotty. They take them down, but people have them on hard drives, and they keep popping up. Okay, so these are things that they talk about this here, retrieving all this stuff. So this is at the highest level, and it is top secret. And so Of course, they're just going to say this document isn't real, but you can see it is real. So anyway, you got that. Then you got that you blow up the picture of them holding the weather balloon, and he has his press release in here, the commands that he's supposed to do versus what he is supposed to say. So they reversed their stance and said it was a weather balloon. And so, just so you know, I know people that were in my church that were there. They're part of the ranch. They were little kids at the time. And so the guy said, my dad, my grandfather, they saw the bodies, they saw the parts of the craft. They saw, they said the cows today will still not go in that spot where it crashed. So the cows know, but we don't, Okay, that something happened there, right? Okay, so the reason I do this is because I literally have relationships with people that have told me the truth and all this stuff. So if you hear me talking, I don't specifically say names and stuff because I just protect these people. But they were there, and he told me a lot more than I've even read. Okay, so we know these things came out of the sky. We know that the government was very concerned because they didn't want it to get out that they can't protect the airspace. They were trying to attach it to other governments, other nations. So they thought it was Russian, but then it wasn't. It had hieroglyphics on it, on the metal. And this guy told me that. He saw it. So in the metal, it had properties that we don't even have. Well, we might have them today in aluminum, which is part of the process. But these are cold fused. So they're super cool to where they melt. If you understand, liquid nitrogen, it's like 380 degrees below zero. And you can super cool things, and they call it cold fusion. And these craft are cold fused. So it looks like marbling. The metals that has no seams, and it just doesn't seem like something we can do today. The friends that were out there that reverse engineered this, they had duplicated some of these, and they even had American flags on them in the hangars. And this is multiple people that I know that have seen these things. So, and they were levitating. They were like doing just like this, but they were just parked. And then these are people I know that shouldn't have told me this stuff. They were up there. They were testing aircraft that have never been released to this day. But they said what they saw, they got in trouble because they were taxiing in. The hangar opened up, and they weren't supposed to see the next project that was going on. He was running late. So he was supposed to already be in his hangar, shutting it down, and then going to his quarters. Then the next top secret project out at Area 51, which doesn't exist, but it's there. So the other projects come out, and they have satellite overfly schedules from all the countries, so they can't have anything out on the ramp during certain times because the Russians are trying to figure out what we got. So there were overfly schedules. Everybody had to be in their quarters. Everything had to be off the ramp. Okay, so it overlapped, and he said, what I saw was more freaky than what I was flying. And I go, well, what was it? He goes, I can't tell you. And then he goes, it might have been a disc. I go, whoa. He goes, on your way. We're done. And I thought, okay, so the government knows stuff, but the narrative, that like what I have, you can figure this out and figure it out for yourself. But if we can't understand certain things and we can't control it, then you don't want to tell the people that your government can't protect you anymore, because that's why we hired the government. We hired the government to represent us and protect us. So your senators, that you send, and your representatives, they're hired to represent you. But if they don't represent you, then they've sealed it up so that you can't do much about it. Just ask Venezuela. Because if you check it out, and I got to be careful here, but check it out, the origin of their machines down there and what they're tied to, and you'll find out what happened a couple years ago. The same thing, same company. So they go in third world countries and tell the dictator, we can guarantee you'll always get in. Okay, so if that's really happening, I'm just making this all up, not. But I mean, what I'm saying is that if that is what's going on underlying in that, then what else is going on? Okay, so I tell you that these documents prove that they do know and that something's going on and they have things. But at the time, you have to figure out, like, on their side of it, they're thinking this is foreign technology. So that's why it went to Wright-Patterson, to the Foreign Technology Division, which anything that falls out of the sky that's foreign, or we don't know what it is, from space, it's taken there to see its origin, and if it's highly technical, then we need to reverse engineer it. Is that okay? Everybody figure that out? Okay, so everything is fine until you use technology to weaponize it, and if you start to turn it on your own people. Okay, so if it's classified, I'm just going to leave it alone. Because there is no way that they're going to leave you alone. Because it's classified means that it is an advantage against our adversaries. When you classify something, that is hiding the information from foreign people, okay? Right? Okay, but if they take that and weaponize it against their own people, turn on their own people, well then, if it's classified but they've used it in the wrong way, who are they accountable to? Right? And then you don't, and these people are not voted officials, so you don't have any so that gets me in if I take a rabbit path. The World War II thing, the reason we went in there was because of things that were happening during the war, which I can give you the names of the people and you can read their books and the documentation of that. So you need, if you have an extra 10 years on your hands, you don't have anything to do, you could go on these things. So Project Paperclip by Annie Jacobson, she's a Pulitzer Prize winner. That's somebody I want to have lunch with, not your favorite preacher. But I want to sit with her and I'll let her talk. But you can read her book, Project Paperclip. Okay, so how this all ties together with this, I want to show you the origin of all this so we can get into the scenario in the end time. Project Paperclip was what happened at the end of the war, but they were watching, and all these reports, if you read, there were what they call Foo Fighters. There were these balls of light that would come up to airplanes during World War II, and they were reported a lot. Then we also, at the end of the war, we had jet aircraft, which we didn't have yet. So the ME-262 came out and flew by some P-51s, which was the hottest fighter, which was a propeller airplane. And it's my favorite airplane. When I flew that, there was only one airplane that was better than that, and that was that F-104, which they trained the astronauts in. But the P-51 was the top fighter, and these things flew by them at 2 or 3 times their speed, and you can see it on video if you look it up on YouTube. And these pilots are like, "What was that?" And the Germans were so far advanced, but when I looked into it, I thought, how did they advance so much? Because when they went into these big laboratories over there was rockets that we had not developed, and there were these disc-shaped airplanes. There was also winged airplanes that had no tails. It was like the B-2 bomber today. That's where we got all that technology. These things, I've seen photos of them, but they take them down. So the first sighting was in 1947 over Mount Rainier, before Roswell. That craft, if you look at the shape of that one that the guy drew, it's the same shape of the photo I saw when the Army went in and took all those laboratories. Those were sitting in there. So I said, wait a minute, I've seen this somewhere else. This drawing I saw in a photograph at the end of World War II. So this is how my journey started. So I started to see, wait a minute. It seems to all go back to Germany. So there were 1,500 scientists that were SS. They were killers. They escaped Nuremberg, and Annie goes through and documents all this. She goes over there and interviews people that were part of this. So all these 1,500 were taken by our forces, brought over to the United States, and they didn't have to go through the Nuremberg trials. But they were Hitler's top men, right? You understand this? There's this. Okay, so if you look up these people, they were assigned over new, literally all, after these things fell out of the sky, within a year, all the 3-letter agencies were formed. And these people, like, I could give you the name, I don't want to do it over the air, but you can look it up. The name of the guy that was assigned to NASA was SS, was one of the 1,500. The head of the CIA as well was a guy who came over. The Air Force was formed because it was Army Air Force. And so you had Air Force bases that were Army Air Force. They split them up and made it Army and Air Force now because of the threat. They needed to have their own department. So you can trace all these guys. So Wernher von Braun was part of the process of killing people. But he went to Los Alamos and he developed our missiles. It was one of Hitler's men. So all this transferred to America. And so you can go through this. It takes a lot of time, so I did it for you, and then we just make it coffee talk. But I'm doing this so that you can think. Now, I know that this gets into the mental realm, but I'm going to show you where the deception is in all this. Is because you can create fields over aircraft. And those fields like that, it creates a different law that is working. It negates gravity, but it also allows airflow over wings and over craft that would not be aerodynamically stable because of a field over it. And today's aircraft have that. You can watch, I can name them, I'm not going to, but you can watch the newest aircraft, the way they maneuver. It is not possible for them to do what they're doing unless they have this technology on board. So can you explain this to me? Like I see this happen. I just saw it happen again not too long ago. You're up in the air, way high, 8 miles up, and you have static electricity on your airplane, and it starts arcing. It starts doing little lightning bolts from the nose of your airplane dancing out into the air, 10, 15 feet. Okay, you're going 500 miles an hour, but electricity isn't affected by that 600 miles an hour wind. It just does what it wants to do. It's beyond the laws that we operate under, electricity. So that is part of how these work. There's other things involved with this that have to do with the material that they're made out of and the material that they use for their propulsion systems, which is of a higher order. So on the earth, all the elements that we have, everybody can hear me, right? I'm whispering because I don't want the men in black to hear me. No, I'm just kidding. The bottom line is I'm gonna start to lose people, so I have to be careful with this because I don't want to get too highly technical. But the bottom line is that the elements that have to do with nuclear energy. So that when you have the periodical chart, if you go through the chart, you have oxygen, you have hydrogen, you have all these elements, helium. But as you go up, the bond gets stronger. So you have more electrons, and you look and you see the cycles around that atom. There's more that are cycling around it, which makes the bond stronger. But in this realm, you don't see anything past a certain point. Because this magnetic field and the earth, the way that it is now, it used to be stronger, but the way it is now, you can't take like lead on the periodical chart and up it by 1 electron and make it gold, because that's the next in the stage. But if you introduce that to it, it doesn't bond. Why? Because the environment will not make it stable. But if you have a stable substance like element 115, which is what these craft have, it was, people laughed at the guy, and now it's on the chart. It just mysteriously appeared. Okay, you're talking 32, 64, that's not even possible to have this in this realm. But so it had to come from somewhere else. So if you have a 2-star system, 2 suns, that bond in those planets would be a lot stronger because of the all that works there. Just let's leave it at that, because that's a whole day. Okay, but the bond of the material, the metal and everything in that atmosphere of those planets would be strong. Everything, the bonds would be many more electrons. So when you look at 115, you'll see 32 and 64, all these. This is like so dense that literally, if you would put that in the center of one of those disks, it creates this whole atmosphere environment around it, which makes it weightless, but also makes it invisible. If you up it with amplifiers, which they do, they have 3 of them down underneath. And then you can change those amplifications and you can shift them in any direction so that you can move the craft. So, when the whistleblowers came out with these pilots, and they have those films, then I was able to talk about this, because if you notice, they tilt and then they move very fast. And they went from 80,000 feet down to sea level in less than 2 seconds. And they have the measurement of the acceleration, their speed, and the G-forces that they would encounter, which was 2,000 or 3,000 Gs. And, the acceleration was thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of miles an hour, 20, 30,000 miles an hour. And these are all clocked because of the radar on the ships. Okay, so they have this data. As soon as it happened, you can look it up, the guy, you can tell he's torqued. He's scared. He was the guy that was in charge of the radar on that ship, on that aircraft carrier. And he might have been the ship next door, I don't know. But if you listen to him, you can tell he's telling the truth. But he said that these guys came in on a helicopter and took everything. And he tears up while he's talking. He's not faking it. Okay, so he says, I want to know what these things were. And they seem to know, but they weren't talking. And we're not allowed to talk about it, Okay, so I'm trying to prove to you, showing you that science believes in this stuff. The science knows this stuff. Okay, but it's highly technical, but it's classified because it can be detrimental to the United States if others have this. Germany had it brought over. When they brought it over, we started having things happen in our skies. So this is what happened with the Manhattan Project. We were developing the nuclear weapon, and we detonated one. And so you read about William Teller, which this guy who reverse engineered this disk met William Teller, and he's the one that got him the job at Los Alamos, and then ended up at Area 51. This is not hearsay. I knew his roommate, this guy's roommate, and they were hiding him because they were trying to kill him. It's not hearsay. This guy drew everything out for me, and then he disappeared. He explained all of it to me, and then I can't even find him. I can't find his birth certificate. He never existed. So that's why I can tell you that something's going on. So what I have to figure out, okay, we don't try to prove this anymore. Let's figure out what their agenda is. What's really going on? I'm not, I don't have to. I think I've done a pretty good job of getting it down to a level where you understand it without getting into the equations. And I have all the books. If you want me to show you the equations, I'll get a chalkboard and I'll write it all out for you. And it won't mean anything, The bottom line is this, are we going to do what every other generation does and turn the other way if it doesn't fit into what we believe? Okay, the reason I say that is because How good have you done solo without God in your life? How has that been working for you? In other words, God knows these things. He understands exactly what's going on. I just want to know that, preferably on a 3x5 card. But the thing of it is that what started happening, and I explained it to Kathy, I said, listen, I know this is spooky, I know this is weird, so I set it aside for 30 years. But then all of a sudden, I started feeling like, you know what? There's a lot of people that are seeing these things, encountering these things, and we need to put a stop to what's going on spiritually, and then we can navigate through the coming years. And I wish it was months. I wish we could just all be with the Lord by Christmas, Maybe Christmas Day, I want to have Christmas Eve here, but open my presents and everything, But then, Christmas Day, we're good to go. White horse, eyes of fire, I'm fine with that. However, there's so many people that are deceived and need the Lord that, the Lord's not going to, Father God's not going to send Jesus back until the harvest is done. So if that's the case, we're going to be here for a while, even though we don't want to be. We're going to have to put up with a many-ring circus, not just 3 rings, with elephants and jugglers and unicycles. We're going to have vehicles like this up here. We're going to have all kinds of stuff happen. And that's what I want to get into. If you really want to irritate a reptilian, when I say reptilian, you know that the word for serpent in the Old Testament in Hebrew is nakash, which means bright and shining one, wise one. It doesn't even mean serpent. But he was serpent-like. But he was on his feet. But he was a beautiful being. And don't ask me how I know. So the whole idea is that from then on, throughout the Bible, even into the book of Revelation, it talks about the serpent of old, the devil, as a serpent. But if you look at what the characteristics were in the conversation that Moses wrote in Genesis, because Moses wrote Genesis. Moses didn't live during Genesis. And you understand that. It actually says in the manuscript that Moses wrote Genesis. So we know, as you study, all you students, that Moses received the book of Genesis on the mountain with God. And that's all in Hebrew culture too as well. Okay, so if this is the case, then Moses didn't know what he was writing. He just got a PDF of it, No, he got a download of this, and everything that is like, that book is so encoded. It's so encoded. It is, in fact, the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, is encoded. So it's interesting. I've done this. I've already ran it. I used to have all this stuff. I know it's somewhere. But what I did was I ran the name of God, Yahweh, and the whole thing for the first 2 books. It's every 49th letter, the 50th letter. I take that throughout those first 2 books, and it spells Yahweh over and over again. And you can get this online, It's on the internet, it must be true. But I mean, I ran it myself. I got the Bible, I got the Bible code software, and I ran this stuff. So Yahweh is spelled every 50th letter. So you count 49 letters, the 50th letter, you take that one, take another 50 letters, and it spells Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. The whole way to get to Leviticus, and then it changes to Torah, I believe it was, every 7th letter. And then the last 2 books, Numbers and Deuteronomy, it's Yahweh every 49th letter, 40th, 50th letter, but backwards. So it's pointing, Yahweh is pointing to Leviticus. Both ways. Okay, so how can multiple people be writing all this stuff and it still end up to do that? Okay, and you're worried about your hairdryer breaking this morning. Like where does that fit in? So in other words, like the things that we think of as problems there's so much more that's been worked out that we had nothing to do with, right? So it shouldn't be a hard step to know that there are reptilian creatures and there's shapeshifters as well. Because I've seen this. I mean, there's people in this room that have seen this happen. I mean, I've encountered people that have changed right before my eyes. They have slitted eyes like a snake as I'm talking to them at work. And I wasn't even fasting. In fact, I probably had 2 hamburgers that day. No, think about this. They manifest. I've had witches appear to me. I mean, come right where I was. And I remember this in Phoenix, Arizona. It was Halloween night. I didn't realize it was Halloween night because I don't honor the devil's holidays. I remember that I was speaking there in Phoenix, Arizona, and at the end of the service, the power of God came on me. I just started casting out devils. I just said, everybody line up as a devil. If you have a devil problem, we need to make it a Christian problem with the devil. You know, the devil needs to have a Christian problem. So they just started lining up, and man, the power of God, I mean, it was easy. I mean, it wasn't even work. And demons were flying out of people that, you know, I didn't even believe that Christians could have devils. You know, it didn't matter, right? I guess devils were screaming out at people. Church people. Lester Summerall told us in class, he said, you know, the question is not if a Christian can have a demon, it's if there's a demon, it needs to go. That's what the question that needs to be answered is. Okay, so I went home, woke up the next morning, went took a shower, and I heard somebody come in. And I thought it was Kathi because that's the only one it could be. And it wasn't her. It was somebody else. And I said, get out of here in the name of Jesus. And she disappeared. She tried to put this big black blanket over me. And I said, Lord, what just happened? And how am I going to explain this to my wife? So I called her in right away because there's no way that anybody could get in to where we were. So I just turned myself in, you know. There might have been a woman here, I don't know, you know. It might have been a witch, I don't know. You know, I don't. And she's like, see, you have to know that this is impossible, but it's not. It happened anyway. And so if you have these things happen 100 times, then you start to be more mature about it and say, well, if there's something hovering over my house, it doesn't make it go away because you turn away or you sing Kumbaya or you get your accordion out and sing Hallelujah. You know, it doesn't matter. You got to deal with it in a spiritual way. And so immediately the Lord said to me, you cast a lot of devils out last night by the finger of God, and that witch was investigating why all these demons came back to her. Now, it's not in the Bible, you know, but this is coffee talk, so, you know, you can't fire me. Just drink more coffee. Okay, so these things are happening. Oh, well, thank you. Well, at least it's not a black blanket anyway. Okay, thank you. So you have enough of this stuff happen, and you've been to heaven, and you know the name of Jesus, you know the power of the blood, and yet stuff walks through your house, stuff moves in your house. You can't just look the other way. It doesn't matter if you've been to heaven or if you've been to hell, you know, and come back, you know. The bottom line is if stuff is happening, I told Kathi, we gotta do something about this. We gotta make an open forum where we talk about it so that people don't think they're crazy. Because, you know, I don't think that any of us are spiritual enough to where we can't have something like this happen. I don't think that has to do with spirituality. I think that if it's happening, I think that your face is posted in the post office of hell. I look at it in a positive way. Okay, so now, and just so you know, I used to have Newman as my postman. I noticed he retired. I was so glad. I swore this guy was Newman. And you can do the math on what was happening and what was not happening to my mail. But, I'm just so glad he went on to his lounge chair, and the whole neighborhood's happy. But if your name is known in hell, and if you are raising a ruckus, then there's going to be these things sent out. Now, just so you know, the cherub is a high order of angel, but it's a different creature than we call them angels. But a cherub is a whole different species. Okay, just so you know. And so are the teraphim. That it's only mentioned once in the Bible. It was actually a false god that one of the patriarch's wives had and was hiding in her bag. She got in trouble for having it. Okay, but teraphim are earthbound. So you have earthbound devils, teraphim. You have cherubim, which are at the throne. They cover God. They have big wings. The seraphim have wings, but they're above God. And I only know of these by Scripture as being, in the throne room. And the only ones that are mentioned as having wings are the species. All the other angels, if you read in Scripture, if you look and be honest with it, they appeared as men. So that means they didn't have wings. And they don't need wings. The wings on an angel are not for them to fly. The wings are for the throne. Because God, if he would ever just let his glory go, it would impact the whole throne room. He actually holds back. Just read Psalms 29, and you get the idea of what happens when he speaks and the God that we serve lets it loose. Stuff starts breaking apart. When he came down on the mountain, it started burning and quaking, breaking up. And that's what Psalms 29 represents. That's the God that you want to be on the right side of. So you want him to whisper to you. Thank God he whispers to you. You don't want him to talk louder, because you might lose your driveway, Okay, so God tones it down, and he has certain species. So one of these was cherubs. Okay, so we get that word cherub, the anointed cherub that covers, about Lucifer in Ezekiel 29. And if you match it up with the Isaiah 14, you got a good, standard framework to start your studies with. However, I don't know about you, but in the Bible, there are certain things being said, and then you hear people talk about it and teach it, and it's this huge step that's the size of the Grand Canyon. But they make it sound like it's this. And I don't see a lot of stuff that's being said in Scripture. And I'm only being honest because, it's cool, the fable that's being told to the church now. It's pretty cool. It's a fable, though. It's not the truth. Everything that God creates is highly sophisticated. It's amazing. Everything that God created. And so all these beings were created even though they're fallen. Okay, the hybrid thing is the problem. When you have an intermixing that is Satan's design, then you have rogue beings. Rogue beings mean that they're rebellious and they're the ones that are causing all the trouble. Okay, so that is an intermix of humans and serpent's blood, and the lizards, the reptilians. I'm only saying this over and over again because AI freaks out. I've been doing this. Reptilian. I mentioned reptilians. No, every time I say that, you'll see you'll watch this video, they'll say that is a fabled creature. But if I mention alien or flying saucer, they say nothing, because that's what they want you to believe. But if you start talking about Nakash the reptile, the serpent, start talking about dinosaurs as being hybrids instead of what they say they are. Because if you go to a museum, and if they'll tell you the truth, the people at the museum will tell you that this is 60 to 80% clay. We don't have all the bones. I'm like, well, that's a lot of clay. So what did those beings really look like? Well, if you see even a skeleton or a fossilization of like, say, a rhino or something, you can't tell what it looked like just by looking at the skull. You can't even tell what you look like by looking at your skeleton. Trust me, you look better. You look better with flesh and with clothes on, And that's all good, right? Okay, but you can't, what I'm saying is that when I was at the Grand Canyon, it was a huge amount of space, both down and across. And I thought, the pictures don't really tell it. And I thought, this is kind of like how we've just kind of accepted things. And I really want people to start thinking for themselves. That's all I'm asking. Being spiritual is not being stupid. And you don't have to lose your brain to be spiritual. You can, actually, I would keep your brain and be spiritual. And then you're safe to be around. Because I can't even trust you with a hot cup of coffee if you've lost your brain. I don't want you making my coffee as well as serving it. In other words, we need everything here. We need to be on our game. We need to understand things. So I want you, after I presented this has kind of been basic, and I want to reset it here in a couple minutes, and we're going to go into something else and give you a break, because you're going to need it, because your brain is going to be fried. Just remember, don't cut the red wire up there. The red wires, do not cut the red wire. But you're going to have to rewire yourself, okay? But this is the problem I have, and I'll finish with this, is the serpent of old is really this bright and shining one in Hebrew, that's wise. And the representation of the animal is that the animal was used as a puppet because its personality was more cunning than all the other animals, it says. So what the being was looking for was someone to be a puppet, kind of like what's happening in our government. So you have this being that has gone rogue. His this is another hour if I say this. Oh, I know. Trust me, I know. But we got a whole day of stuff going on. Oh boy, what do I do? I got to be mature. I got to stay on the script. Okay, this is the bottom line. Where did we get Lucifer from? Did you know it's not in the manuscript? Oh yeah, I've just hit the hornet's nest, the African hornets, Not even just hornets. I've hit African. The big boys. I was brave enough to look into Hebrew, and I was surprised that the word is there. So I said, well, then where did this Lucifer come from? That's not even in the manuscript. Who put that there, and why? Because Lucifer was a Babylonian god. Hillel is what's there. Which, when you look that up, it is from a form of Hebrew. It's talking about the same thing, the bright and shining one. Okay, so a flight attendant prays in tongues found this. So what can you find if you actually study? Do you accept everything straight across, or do you look into it? Because I thought, well, then we got a big problem here, because it talks about in Revelation, and if you look at what's happening after chapter 3, when you get in chapter 4, you know that the church isn't mentioned in chapter 4 and on. From then on, the church is gone. So what is a flight attendant praise in tongues saying this? This means that across the board, we're all smart, not just certain people. Because I did this without being a minister. Because I can read. And I'm disciplined enough to study until I find out what's really going on. What I found out was going on was, in the book of Revelation, there is a track, a chronological track that I didn't even believe existed there. But why was the church, why were the saints at the throne saying, avenge our blood? And there was no mention anymore. Check it out, chapter 4. If you start reading chapter 3 and chapter 4, it changes. There's missing pieces. Okay, what about at the end of Revelation where it talks about the dragon's tails swept the stars? Okay, who said that those are angels? And who said when that happened? Because everybody says, well, that's what happened back then. It doesn't say that. Could that be an event that happens later on? I believe it is. Okay, so that serpent of old, we know that. Okay, so that's in the Bible. But I'm only asking you to do this so that you don't accept stuff just because somebody tells you it. Because I don't see a lot. I see a big step across a canyon when they act like it's this little step. And what happens is people get frustrated because you want to be on Sid Roth. You know, you want to have a book and you want to have an experience. But if you want an experience, just say no to the devil and you'll have an experience. Just practice saying no to people that are always managing you. They call it managing, it's manipulation. So I believe that our government has a narrative that puts us in a certain way. And I'll close this and we'll get into the next one. I'll give you a break. Is that they want you, if you notice all the algorithms and the AI, do not dispute if you talk about aliens and flying saucers. But if you mention reptilians, they say this is a fabled creature. You watch it. I've mentioned it so many times because I want to see how many times that they can get irritated. Okay, so why are they disclaiming that this person is referencing reptilians, which is a fictitious creature? But when I say alien or all this other stuff, they don't say a word about it. So does that mean it's not fictitious? Or you know they're going to say the opposite of what you say. So what are they protecting? The fact that these entities in that order of Hallel were upright on their feet. And they appeared in the language. I can't go any further. Kathy even wants to know, but there was, when I was at the throne, I saw this. And when I saw this, I said, oh my gosh, this fills in all the gaps. How am I going to tell the people, though, this? And he says, you're not going to ever tell anybody. He says, you never mention this on the earth, what you saw. I go, but, he goes, never going to say it. So even Kathy, she says, well, was it this? I go, I can't hear you. Okay, but there's nothing new under the sun. God created everything. And it's been corrupted. So what you see may not be what it really is. It may be portraying itself. So the reports, we'll get into this, we'll give you a break now, but the reports is Gary Nolan, that professor at Stanford. He has material from these craft that the CIA has asked him to analyze. Okay, so other things have come. Now, I said that wrong. He had been asked by the CIA to do brain scans of people that have had these encounters where they've had these beings and these craft, and they've been around them. They said, this has happened. We want to know what has happened to their brain. So he did the scans and did this. He did this amazing study, and that's why he got interested in something he didn't even really believe in. I mean, he wasn't like interested in UFOs. He's a microbiologist. So he is into immunology, which I think he should study all the time. For immunology, I guess I need him to tell us what. But he's very He's very, very smart. And he said, well, I have material that's not from this realm. We've tested it. And he said, the CIA asked me to do brain and try to find the connections on what's happening in people's bodies when they claim to be exposed to this, whatever these instances are. And he found correlation in the brain and in different things. And it's just very interesting. And maybe I'll do a whole session on that sometime, on what he found. But Gary Nolan is somebody else that you want to read on. And there's a lot of scientists right now that you need to listen to, because they are really genuinely neutral, but they're admitting that the government's hiding things. So he has no doubt, because he's got the substance. Okay, so with that being said, if the line of Cain had this reptilian DNA in them, which is what happened, and that could be through gain of function, through mRNA, or through the RNA messaging, messaging, okay? I shouldn't have said the whole thing. That's why I'm trying to break it up. Okay, so in your liver, they have to gain function through an animal, because humans won't take. They have to weaponize it through using animal. So they choose an animal of the year, and they do gain of function. Now, you've heard all these words, but you need to listen to Malone, the doctor who developed this. But he didn't know it was going to be weaponized. They haven't killed him yet, so you need to listen to him. He's very vocal and still alive. Okay, they take and they get it to alter within an animal first, and then they put that into a human body. And it's through the liver, and that's how it changes your DNA. So they have to create a problem, and then immediately, if you look at the patents from the problem that we just went through, and then the patent for the, I can't say the V word, but it was within the same realm of time. They'd already had that. But if they won't release what's in it, but yet the doctor that worked on it says, well, this is what's in it, well, then you should listen, okay, because that gets into your liver. So that's why I drink celery juice. No, I didn't take that thing. I took what my horses take. Because they didn't get it, so I didn't get it. You can get it on Amazon during the whole debacle. Oh, well. If you have something in your body that you realize you don't want in there now, there are things you can do. I drink celery juice. There's all kinds of green stuff you can take that'll grab that stuff and take it out. It's going to take a while, but you can get rid of it. So there's a schedule, and that's why you're seeing people pass away. There's a schedule, and based on how much you took and all this stuff. I got to back out of this cave. I'll live to have lunch. Now listen to me. I've said enough. The bottom line is, these creatures at the highest level are not what you think. They're portraying themselves as something, and so Gary Nolan he said, I was there. People have taken pictures where there is a disc, but when it comes out on a photo, it's just a point of light. So they're actually projecting something to your eyes, which you can do. And that gets into all the things that you're seeing now in the sky. They can be projected there. And that's what's going to happen in the end times. It's going to be all deception. Okay, so the key to this is that Cain, because of his sin, and something that happened that got into that bloodline, if you look at Cain and you look at all that happened there, and then you look at Adam's sons, they kept living the whole way almost to the flood. Okay, but they weren't allowed after a certain point to cohabit with the line of Cain because of the reptilian that had gotten in the serpent seed. You know, it's what the Bible says. That serpent seed is valid because the serpent has seed, which we didn't think would. That seed, that offspring, which Jesus called the Pharisees he said that that woman's seed, which a woman doesn't have seed. Okay, so the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the devil would clash, right? Okay, so we have that in that narrative in there, so we should stick with that. And we should also know that there is Hebrew words that I could say that are words for angel. But when you look in the genealogies, in the Gospels, they take from Jesus Christ the whole way back to Adam. And in that genealogy, if you read it and weep, because it goes the whole way to Adam and it says Adam, the son of God. Okay, so that word in Hebrew, if you look at why anyone would use the sons of God when it was supposed to be the word for angel, which are two different words, this is where you'll grow up. And this is where you'll realize that just like Samson was told, don't intermarry. You can see where God would tell Adam's sons that are staying righteous up here at the top, Methuselah and all them, Enoch, staying up here. You don't go dating these women and you don't marry these women. You don't have anything to do with them. They were bad blood. Okay, you understand that the term angels, when has, in Hebrew it says it, when has God ever called an angel his son? It says that we're his sons. We're his offspring, right? This always goes over well. Please do not write me. Do not write me. Do not waste any digital ink. Okay, so when this happened, it was the gain of function. It was needed for the serpent to have human blood, to have a hybrid. So that's what we're dealing with, the disembodied spirits from that race that was destroyed with the flood, which is millions of people. If you do the calculations, even scientifically, scientists have already done it. They actually had how many animals were on the earth and how many human beings were on earth. You could look it up. I've done it all. It's millions of people that died in the flood. And only 8 had not been tainted. It says they were perfect in their genetics, generations, the word's generations. So those 8 were pure, but see, it got on the ark through gain of function through the animals. And so you have them off the ark. It always goes over well. But they weren't supposed to have relationships during that year on the ark. And they did. And I can tell you who it was. And you can figure it out. Okay, so what we're dealing with is disembodied spirits. But the reptilian type of creature, there are levels in the heavenlies, and some of these are in the air. There's some beneath the earth. There's some that are underwater now because they lived there before the flood. They don't want to leave their territory. That's why they told Jesus, don't send us out of our area. Have you come to torment us before our time? So they're not in torment. Hello? Jesus didn't cast out angels. The angels that left their abode are chained. So Jesus didn't address them as angels. And angels can't inhabit you. Angels don't even have the body parts to procreate. If you don't believe me, just listen to what Jesus said. He said, you're not going to be married or given in marriage in heaven. You'll be like the angels. Well, what does that mean? Well, you do the math. The reason I'm saying this is because what you're dealing with is a hybrid race that was opted out, pushed out of this realm, but is parallel. And your eyes don't see that, but your spirit picks it up. And there are higher orders over these disembodied spirits. Satan accessed Hitler through witches. He had witches on staff. He gained all of this technology by opening portals. This is a great place to quit. All right, so you want a couple minutes? You need to go to the restroom and stuff? Hey, all the kids, we're going to be doing a kids program in about an hour. But I have something for the kids right now. So if however you want to do it, you need to go to the restroom. I'll give you like 5 minutes, which is a long time for a pilot. But if you could like do the bathroom thing and then bring your kids up here real quick. I have a gift for them right now. I want to talk, and I'll maybe do this during the intermission if you can do it. I need to talk to the kids just a little bit and give them something. So, hey, ladies, can you help me? Yeah.